Welcome to The Teacher's Story, a podcast dedicated to amplifying the voices of educators and advocates in the field of education. Here, we celebrate those who champion our children's potential and seek innovative approaches to nurture their brilliance. Join us as we share candid stories, explore impactful ideas, and showcase effective educational programs. This podcast stands for transparency, authenticity, and innovation, driven by the belief that we can revolutionize the education system to ensure every individual thrives. Together, let's redefine education as a pathway to human flourishing. Hi, welcome to The Teacher's Story. I'm Jackie Scully, and today we have two previous guests back on together to share about their collaborative work. We have Christine Jones and Kristin Nori, and they are going to share about their book and program, Bridging the Educational Gap. So most of this episode is going to be about their work together. If you want to learn more about their background, I'm going to link their episodes that they were featured on in the season 3 in the show notes. So Christine Jones, her episode was episode 58, More Joy in Schools, that also was with Cindy Cohen. And Christine is a current kindergarten teacher, also has various leadership roles, and she has her coaching business called Christine's Creative Coaching. And Kristin was featured in episode 71, Champion for Special Needs Students, and she is the founder of her company, Inclusion Advocates and Allies. So I'm so excited to have you both on and share about your work together. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us on today. We're looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it. You want to go ahead, Christine, and then I'll jump in after you?
Yeah, so
Okay.
feel free to just share what you've both been working on with Bridging the Educational Gap.
So I'm going to go back to how the idea came about, first of all, because so Kristin and I'm going to go do a further backstory about how Kristin and I met, and then we'll talk about how we came about bridging the educational gap. And I think I'll let you jump in at that point, Kristin.
Sure.
So Kristin and I met through LinkedIn and through a mutual connection of ours on LinkedIn. So Kristin and I were watching each other's posts, and we were looking to see how we responded to things. And I was like, I could have written Kristin's post, and Kristin was like, I could have written Christine's post. And then I started looking at like the actual post. And so I was following her for a little bit before we were actually connected. And then mutual connection of ours said you needed to connect. And I think it was probably like for a couple of weeks. Now, Kristin's memory for dates is much better. So it could have been a couple of days, but it felt like a couple of weeks. And then we met and we spoke, and then we ended up that's how we ended up connecting. So then we were on a couple of shows together, and we decided to do a book together. So we were doing some research during one of our discussions, and what did we find, Kristin?
We became absolutely shocked that there's nothing out there that really talks about how to bridge that gap between home and school for parents and to help support parents. Within that, there was no Venn diagram that had been created that showed that overlapping responsibility to help parents and teachers get that connection and that bridge of how much there is that we need to be helping between home and school to help kids, get better connected and do better in school academically and social, emotionally, behaviorally.
So then that's when we created our book together. So Kristin and I have over 50 years of experience. So when we went to go write this book, we're like, oh, this is so simplistic. There's really not that much to it. And we ended up doing a focus group, and they're like, I don't get this. And then we realized they're like, there's a lot to it. Well, we didn't do what do you call it? An index or table of contents. That's what you call it. We did not do a table of contents. And when we did that, we were like, oh my gosh, because we had so many different components to it. And that's why they weren't able to figure it out. Chris and I spent most of the summer working on this. What we did is we kept on paring it down and paring it down. So it is very, very simplistic for parents to follow. It follows a natural scope and sequence. What do you do first? And then it builds on each other till the very end. We can go in more depth about that, Kristen, but I'm just going to kind of just do just an overview to Jackie. So we went through all of that. Now we have the table of contents. With the table of contents, it is easy for parents to see. And on one side has the very specific paragraphs, maybe like 2, and has a parent pro tip on there. And it also goes back to what part of the Venn diagram is it. So is it overlapping or their responsibilities? Well, most of what happens is it's overlapping a lot of the skills. So there's only a couple on each side. So that's I think that's important for parents and teachers to realize. So a lot of the things that are overlapping, and I have my book right here, is the communication skills, the real world skills, social skills, emotional skills, and community skills. Those are all overlapping, and those are the responsibilities of teachers as well as parents. So we want to make sure that it was very easy for parents to do, to look at, and to implement immediately. So they don't have to comb through a lot of papers and go, what do I need to do first? What do I need to do next? It is in black and white, and it's very clear and concise.
Yeah, and I do think this is very needed because there's been a lot of contention between schools and parents through the pandemic time. And there's more conflict than actually cooperation. And so what you created in this book, and then you can also elaborate about your program and actually like working with parents and teachers, is to bridge that gap and bring them together and see that Venn diagram, there's so much overlap. You know, they're a partnership, and the parents really should be in the know. Like, I think they need to be more involved in the school system and not just being like outside of it. And then when the pandemic happened and they could kind of see school right in their homes, and everyone's like, oh, now all the parents are up in arms about curriculum or about this and that. And in a way, it was like that the way it went down was kind of frustrating for teachers. But I also get it. Like, I get where parents are like, how are we not in the know of what's going on in schools? And instead of maybe both parties coming to a place of like, let's just like use this to talk to each other, it just was like a battle, you know, like we heard about the school board fights and everything. So I definitely see this being a major need. So yeah, if you want to elaborate more about that overlap and connection, or how you've been using the book with like workshops.
I'm going to jump in, Christine, but if you want to, please jump in as well and just interrupt me. But I think that one of the things that happened is we wrote this book and then we showed it to a few people in the field that said, this is not just a book. You guys did not just create a book. You have a workbook that really goes with a program. And the more we looked at it, we absolutely have a program here. So we sat down and lesson planned and wrote out a scope and sequence. And we really offer a very unique program that's that one-stop shop approach with that child-centered scope and sequence. And it's really, the goal is to enable caregivers and schools to work together to help benefit the child, increasing their attendance, having them improve their overall academic and behavioral performance, like I mentioned. And then also, the way that we're doing that is through customizing their classes and the tools that they need. We noticed that there wasn't any specific tools out there really to bridge that gap and to give the wraparound home to school connection. So we're providing a solution that really isn't currently available in anywhere that we could find. There are parenting classes out there and things like that, things that are similar, but nothing that specifically is really helping parents learn how to advocate and support their child in a collaborative relationship with the educator.
So,
Would you agree, Christine?
yes, and I really liked how you stated that. It was very good. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and piggyback off of the idea, and I just lost my train of thought. I don't know if that ever happens to you guys, but that just
all the
happened to
time.
me.
All the time.
All the time. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. So, Yeah, I really lost it. So you want to go ahead and jump in, Kristen, because
Sure.
I forgot where I was.
Sure. So when we created this, one of the things that we realized is we didn't have to just focus on parents. We could actually create classes for teachers too. So we just had the opportunity about 3 weeks ago to present together in Dallas, where we did a presentation on coaching educators and coaches on how to increase parent engagement. And one of the things that really brought to the forefront and the light for us with our participants was how much they didn't see that overlap either until we put it in front of them. And it was like the aha moment. So you could just see, it was like, oh, we did not realize that it was going to be that significant of an overlap. So getting them to, buy into and support the need to build those relationships is critical too, because we know a lot of times, it's just one more thing on a teacher's plate to have to reach out and build those relationships. And the more students you have, the more difficult that can be.
Mm.
So I remembered what I wanted to say.
To tell, so I wrapped it up.
So I had a parent that read our book, and she really found the book to be very useful. But she said that she needed help to implement it. So
Mm.
the the book itself is like it's a tier 1 resource. But in order to be able to successfully implement it, our parenting class would be
Mm.
extremely helpful, because it's like when you look at an iceberg, it is the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much that goes beneath that iceberg that needs to be addressed, or that could be used for specifically for that student or for that parent. And with what Kristen said too, when we're talking about like the parenting classes will have another component where if Kristen could do her allies and advocates part of it, if they need help in the educational system. The other thing that we can do is to write individualized program for the parents based upon their needs and their children's needs. So then that way we could offer a program that would be designed for them. So those are some of the things, and
Mm.
also bridging that gap between the home and school. So with the school hearing the same things that the parents are hearing, that way we can make sure that that it crosses over and meshes very nicely between the two. So ideally, to have schools hire
Mm.
us and then have that parent component, but we can also offer those standalone services for the parents. We could also offer standalone services for schools or for school corporations.
Yeah, because I think, especially when I was talking with Kristen on that episode, kids fall through the cracks a lot because they don't get the services they need, and you both combine experience, especially with like individual education plans and working with like special education population. A lot of people don't realize that many don't get the services they need, and the parents don't know how to advocate. The schools are overwhelmed. They have so much that they're doing that I think your position as this advocate kind of liaison between like the family and the school is really needed. And I think you have like this niche kind of, new type of program and even like a position for educators. Like this is where I really see your professionalism shining because a lot of things too, teachers were leaving education because they're like, we're just seen as babysitters. Like people don't see us as professionals. We just get dumped on all these duties, all these things. And like, they don't realize we have master's degrees. Some have doctorate degrees, tons of certifications, being able to break down all that, pedagogical language and make it seem like something that parents can digest and understand. That's like the work that you're doing. So you're bringing all your professionalism and your, academic background, but you're making it digestible for parents to understand. Because I'm sure a lot of parents sit in those like IEP meetings and be like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what this means at all.
So
Sure.
that's thank you for bringing that up, because that's one of the interesting things about our program is that we're going to be teaching parents the educational language to use
Mm.
through our program. So when we talk about our book, we're going to be saying right now you are learning tier 1 instruction. So how this could transfer over to schools, you could ask, what does their tier 1 instruction look like? How's my child digesting, or how are they doing with tier 1 instruction? And then the teacher could say, hey, they're doing this or that. Well, so they're not doing very well with tier 1 instruction. So what are you doing during your tier 2 instruction to meet my child's needs? And then they could have these discussions. And then, okay, so tier 2, how are they doing tier 2? Oh, so they're not doing so great. So you're working with my child in tier 3. So then that way there can be more overlap, and also making sure that there's connection between home and school when we start to teach parents the terminology that's being used. That also will set them at ease and know how to communicate more effectively with the schools, or to ask the important questions that they need to have answered for themselves.
One of the things too, I wanted to address, time is always an issue. Everybody always says, I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. One of the things that's so wonderful about our book, and it's a question that actually somebody asked us the other day on another live show, well, how much time would this take to implement? That's the beauty of it. There is no set time of, oh, you have to do this every day, or you have to do this for this X number of minutes. It's piecemeal like a salad bar. The heartier your salad, the better it is, and the healthier it is for you. The book is similar to that, in that, of course, the more you use it and the more you get out of it. But you could go into this book and say, I just need help with morning and nightly routines. And there's a section that you can look up that just addresses that area, that then hopefully it's not as overwhelming to parents. So that's something from that standpoint on the parent side, because, I constantly hear from, even family members with kids, I don't have time to do that. You either put that time in on the front end, or you deal with the consequences of not having the morning routine and nightly routine on the back end. So, that's really time. You do have time. It's a matter of how you choose to spend that time and use that time. Same for the educators. They constantly are saying, I don't have time. This is set up so that we can help parents doing more things in the home, which will support them by taking things off their plate. So, it will free up time on the educator's end if the parents are doing all of these things in the home. So, just one piece that I jumped into my head and I wanted to mention.
Then I'm going to
I
go
like
ahead and
that. Yeah.
piggyback off of that too, Kristin. So if they fill out they're doing the morning and nightly routine, it's just not one night. So they're like, oh, I did this one night, the behavior should improve or whatever. So you don't want to start tracking the behaviors until you start having the routine and all of that. And then if you're like, oh gosh, even after I've developed this routine and we've set these certain expectations, I am still seeing behaviors, then you could do our behavior chart. And we have a behavior chart that goes along with it. Then after you've done the behavior chart for a little bit, you're like, oh boy. So I've done the nightly routines and the morning routines. I've also done this behavior chart for a significant amount of time. I now need to record what happened before, during, and after. And then if you can start to see patterns. If you are still running into troubles, that's when that tier 3 part that Krista and I were talking about, that we could do an individualized program for the parents, and talking about what things could they try. And then we would come up with ideas and then revisit that with the parents, whatever their goals might be. So that's why this book isn't something that you would just go through and go, I've completed everything. Each step could take, a long time, and that is okay. These are resources for you to use. Oh, we also have a doctor section. We have when to take it to the professionals. So this is literally like you would take this to school. You would have this by you at home, so you could take notes, and you would take it to the doctor's appointments. You would take it to school because there's a note area for schools, so you could keep track. If your child's taking medication, there's a note section for that as well, so you don't forget. If there was a book like this, because I had 3 children of my own that could have utilized this because of all the doctor's appointments and having, you know, everything in one place that would have been
Mm-hmm.
very, very helpful.
Yeah, this is very
And that's,
different. Yeah,
yeah,
I
that's the
didn't
thing
know
that
it went
makes it
into
stand
all
out.
of those other areas. Yeah.
That's the
Mhm.
thing I think that makes it stand out so much, is that it
Yeah.
really lends to, any situation of what ifs we tried to come up with and create an answer for.
Mm,
Even down to, this, anything from this can work for a child that's younger than school age, 2, 3, 4 years old, up through 18, because we've got it tiered in the book so that there's examples
mm,
and differentiated to show, what it would look like for a younger student versus an older student. Even the feelings charts where we're asking them
mm,
to track and see how they're feeling. We have one for elementary and one for, secondary, so that it's not as babyish looking for the older kids and that
mhm.
kind of thing.
We have
Yeah.
a place too for homework,
Mm,
without tech, without any technology at all, and how to incorporate into the parents' work schedules and make it more meaningful, instead of superficial, because we all know that the workbooks are just like, copying something or maybe like a matching, but there's really not a whole lot of higher level critical thinking skills. When you start to incorporate it into your everyday life and including your children in on that, it can actually decrease the amount of time that you're actually spending with your children learning,
mhm.
because it's incorporated as part of your routine, which also gives your children structure after school and helps give you build in that structure, and instead of having them go on the iPad or going on workbook pages, so it would definitely be more meaningful to them. So we have a section on how to go about doing that as
Yeah,
well.
and I don't have kids, but if I did, I would definitely be using your program because I think we all assume that because you have a child, you just know what to do with like
Right.
everything. Like, because I love how this is not just about education. Like it is about, their health. It is about like social emotional,
Mhm.
routines, all of that. Like we just assume parents figure it out. We just assume parents have their own parents that mentor them and not a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people are like, either I didn't have great parents who showed me the way, or they're not around anymore. And think about single parents, especially. I could see this really being helpful for single parents. So I'm curious too, to know about like feedback that you've been getting from either parents, teachers, or how maybe also you're starting to see. I don't know, did you roll out your program yet where you're actually working in groups or one-on-one? Or are you just getting feedback so far from like the book? So anything you want to share about that time?
Getting feedback right now from the book is what
Mhm.
we're
Yes.
doing. We are going to be launching our first parenting class. We just started getting coaching this last weekend. That's why, well, Kristen's here with me for a little
Yep.
while because so we could start getting our business up and going. And so we're looking forward to when we launch it. And so that way we'll be able to touch a lot of people's lives. But what we want to make sure
Mhm.
that we do is solidify that parent end of it to make sure that we're getting, like you had just said, the feedback that we're receiving and then tweaking it to make sure that that is okay. When we feel like we have excellent feedback, then that's when we'll start the classes on the educational side. We don't want to just roll out both parts and then say what was working, what wasn't working. So then that way we'll be able
True.
to mesh that the teacher end of it better with the parent program. So that's what we've been thinking about doing.
Mm. Mhm.
Absolutely. I had just had one of those moments where knew you were getting ready to wrap up and I was going to say something and now it's out of my head and I can't think of what it was.
Hey,
So
that's
we're
great.
we're just trending today with that. Um,
Wow.
One of the
Just
things though with the book that I think is really cool is that it's just so much more than a book. What we keep discovering is it's so interactive, and there's so many different parts that can be used and utilized depending upon what their individual needs are, that it really differentiates, for whoever needs something. One, I remember now what I was going to say, it just popped back into my head. I have two friends in particular that you came to mind, Jackie, when you said, like, what feedback are we getting? Both are not friends of mine that have children of their own. Both have purchased the book, though. One is a teacher. She used it at parent conferences to show to all of her parents and say, this is a great resource. This would be something that would be very supportive to me if you were doing these things in the home, and kind of walked them through how they would use it. I have another friend who said to me, this is going to be my new gift for all my friends who have kids,
Oh, I
because
love that.
I know they need this. They don't
Yeah.
know they need it, but I do, because I'm outside watching them try to parent, and they need some support. So being able to give those as gifts to people is another amazing thing. I immediately, people say, oh, I don't have kids, I don't think I need the book. Well, I have handed the book to so many people that I know could benefit from it, because I know that, a lot of times the ones that need it the most are not going to have that at their fingertips, or know about these things. So being able to get it out there into the community in a philanthropic way is very important to Christine and I as well.
Yeah.
This isn't about just making, money or anything. This goes back to helping children
Yeah.
and helping really reform education and change education.
Of course. And that's where we all kind of came together, with our passion for education reform and really shifting the system. And you're doing this on this very, again, parent to school kind of platform. And what I've been talking about is really just sharing, teachers' stories and their ideas, and really elevating their voices, but now also looking at innovative systems that are working and how we can actually like look at that as a model and really change the education system. I love the idea of teachers, using it as a tool in parent conferences, because we all know how much we love parent conferences.
Right.
They could be very difficult. Sometimes they're just either really hard, or they just skim the surface when there's a lot more going on, or parents
Right.
don't feel maybe confident or equipped to actually share things that they're worried about or concerns that they have. And I think the book is also like a nice way to have an opening to those conversations. It could be like an icebreaker, and also, again, of course, a tool. I've had conversations with parents where I can remember one from a couple years ago. It was a mom who was a night nurse, and single mom, and really like wanting to be there for her, son as much as she could, but she felt overwhelmed. She felt very overwhelmed. And, if that book existed during that conversation, I would have been like, please look at this, because there's so many tools for you. And I think just that also bridges the gap of the teacher and parent relationship, right? It shows that like a teacher caring for the parent, and also saying, you using some of these tools actually will help you, but it helps me. And
Yeah.
we're here to work together. And I don't know if this is part of your vision, but I would love to see more conversations between like parents and teachers, like actually maybe in workshops together, or in professional development together.
Yeah.
You never see that. It'd be really cool if schools, when they host professional development, if it was possible, maybe they'd have to do it like in the evening or after school, but to invite parents and actually do something together. And when you invite the parents in and you do something with the teachers and build that relationship, I could just see it making everything so much easier. And, there is a whole support system there. Um, that's all it takes is, that welcoming in. And I feel like your book and program is that as well. Not only to help parents, but it's like a welcoming in, bringing these two sides together. So I don't know if there's more you want to share about how teachers are involved with using the book or program, or your vision for where this could go. You want to talk more about your launch, and I will plug all of your information about the book, but if you have details, and you can always share with me later, about your program, your parenting program, I can plug all of that into the show notes so people know where to find you.
That's wonderful. I appreciate that greatly. I think that one of the things too that we're really passionate about it with is exactly what you were saying, Jackie, with getting that bridge really connected between home and school, so that kids also view it as a joint connection. And there isn't, I think, like you said at the beginning, since the pandemic, there's been a lot of shift in that relationship and the way that they're formed. And I think kids have caught on very smartly to that, and they tend to placate and play parent versus teacher against each other. This helps alleviate a lot of those issues. If they know teacher and parent are going to talk regardless, of the situation, then it just helps alleviate a lot of the potential problems that could be there.
Absolutely.
So Chris and I believe in being proactive. I know that you're the same way, Jackie. So setting up those relationships before you ever have an issue and talking to the schools on how to build those partnerships before you're making that very first phone call, saying, your child's having challenges, how can I help? And that's another thing. How can I help? How can we work together to work on a solution for this? So even if you are having to make those phone calls, we've all had to do those like on the fly. There's a right way to set up the relationships in a positive way. And then there's also that other way that each time that you make a phone call after that, like their parents' stomachs start to tighten, and and they're like, oh gosh, she's calling again, or like not picking up the phone because they don't want to hear what's being said on the other side, because it wasn't a collaborative effort. So we're going to be really focusing in on that on the school side. And I love your idea about the workshops and having both parties come together and maybe do a project or working together in some way that neither one of them are experts. Because what happens so often is we bring parents in and we're the experts in that. What would happen if we opened it up and we're no longer the experts in either are they? And we would set ourselves up for being vulnerable, but at the same time, when we're vulnerable, great things happen, because then there's that that you have to work together. So there isn't a right way or a wrong way to do things. So that's just something that I was thinking about as you were talking. The other thing is that I was listening to what Kristin was saying about what other people are saying. So when we have been telling people about our program, they're telling us it's going to be on a national level because of our program and it being so unique. I've also been told, like, sorry for people that are religious, but this is like a Bible for parents. And the person that told me was very religious too. So they, just all one stop shop. So what Chris and I are hoping to do is take this to a national level and be the owners of the company, and then hire people out to do some of the work and talking to bridging the gap between home and school, and doing our professional development that we have created, and
Yes.
that out on a larger scale.
Yeah, I can definitely see schools like wanting to have this program. I had a principal in Hawaii when I taught there. And one challenge in that community, because every community has their own challenges too, where again, if this is like broad enough, and like you said, a la carte, pick what you want, but they can kind of use it and then they can tweak it and make it their own in their community. So in this community in Hawaii, it was an immigrant community, a lot of Pacific Islanders moving to America from like all over the Pacific. And my principal really struggled with, we're just throwing these kids into classes. We had a ton of ESL kids. This is at the time of No Child Left Behind. So the test scores and all of that, which still matter, right? Today, unfortunately, and that's we can get into like our whole vision of education. But he wanted to create like this transition center where it would be something like if you had your program, it was like, this was 2006 when I was there, but if it was like that existed, that would have fit in exactly in what he wanted to create, because he wanted to bring parents, teachers, the new students in and do this kind of like over a summer period. And then there would be like support systems through the school year to get them ready for school. Not just, part of that would be English classes, but it would also be like, this is how school looks in America, right? Or like this type of school. this is how we have certain rules. This is how you have certain classes. This is, like all the things like, and the support systems you have within a school. We don't only have teachers, but we have a counselor, right? Parents, you can go to the counselor as well. Like these are things that the parents would never know. And this is not just a saying for immigrant parents, but for there's a lot of parents who are just like, I don't want to go anywhere near school because maybe that parent had a really hard time in school. I hear that a lot. Like parents who had a really hard time in school and have trauma from the school experience. Again, why we want to shift the system so that it's not, you know, kids aren't dealing with trauma, but parents hold on to that. And they're like, I don't want to go talk to a teacher. I don't want to go talk to a counselor. Like everything feels like authority, right? And like they know so much more than me and I don't know anything. I've talked to parents before and they're like, basically act like, I don't want to sound stupid. I'm like, you know your kid. You're like, I don't want ever a parent to come to me thinking like what Christine was saying, like, I know everything and you know nothing. Like, that's not how it is. But so many parents feel that way. And I think there are schools that would definitely take this on right away and say, like, we need this. Like my principal in Hawaii would have been like, I need this program in my school because we have parents that have no idea how to do this. They have no idea what school is like here. Like I had students from the Marshall Islands and they like lived in villages and they didn't really go to like a school building. Their school was like probably part of their like kind of village setting and they had elders in their community and they would just come to school and I would have kids who would just like leave the class and I'm like, where are you going? They're like, I'm going home. I'm like, but why? They're like, I'm done for the day. I'm like, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
There's just so many things and we are in a country that's very diverse and you're going to have a lot of different communities with needs and a lot of, different parents and their backgrounds. So like, I definitely can see this growing. And kind of just anything else you want to share? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, so what ends up happening with a lot of programs is that they're piecemealed.
Mm,
So they're just pulling in different things. Ours, we were also told just from the book that this is like a standalone program and it meets and exceeds anybody that needs a parental component to their business, whether it's like early childhood
mm,
or like even we're thinking like the Boys and Girls Club. We're
mm,
just trying to start right now thinking of different places that could
mm.
benefit from this kind of programming.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what we're hearing a lot. Even other places are piecemealing and pulling, but um, from different areas.
Yeah. And I envision us being able to pass this along to hopefully put in the right hands of the right organizations like Boys and Girls Club or Parent Teacher Association of America and
Yes.
different
Mm,
organizations like that have those kinds of powers at the national level to help us. But I also think that Christine and I've talked about with some of our creative marketing, sending it off to some of the talk shows that have on,
mm,
different shows, people they'll have on authors that have done things like what we've done and see if anybody bites to get us on a
mm,
national show that exposes this because I
mhm,
really think it's one of those if people knew it was here they'd be jumping on it. It's just us getting it out there and that's something we're working on and building on now, but any support at the national level of course is going to
mhm.
help.
And this
Yeah.
helps everybody. This helps the child, it helps the school, and it helps the parents. And because we all know that when parents are involved in a child's education, test scores go up.
Mhm,
And that is like the secret sauce on how we can get it to help our educational system
mhm.
by
And
bridging the
just
gap.
like and just like in a marriage, like kids want to see partnership. They want to
Mhm.
see adults working together
Yes.
and really both coming together to care for that child, to care for them. And when they see conflict between the school and parents or between teachers and parents, that's going to make the child feel like they don't trust the school system or they don't trust their parents or they don't trust that relationship and they're probably going to have more behavioral issues. So I think ultimately we have to look at it like this is a relationship, this is a marriage between the school system, the teachers and the parents and the child. When the child sees that, they're like, "Oh, all these adults really care for me and they're working together." And so I kind of want to show up, like maybe that boost accountability on the child, because there's accountability on the child as well, especially as they get older, you know, that like, I think eventually like weaning off of like the scaffolding coming from both teacher and parent, and like you're becoming a young adult, like I work in high school and, you have accountability, but I think the child could own that accountability and feel it when they see the adults caring for them together and working together. I don't think that's a conversation that we're having. I mean, this is really unique, especially even on this show, is that talking about that relationship and how the child sees it. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, Jackie. Um, I'm still currently in the classroom, and I always tell my students that we are going to be calling home. And this is what I'm calling home over. I'm asking your parents for support and to have them talk with you. So then that way we can carry on our
Mhm.
day. So when I talk with the parents, it's a partnership. This is
Mm.
what's happened. This is what I've tried. Um, do you have any suggestions? And then they'll come on the phone and they'll talk to their child. I often get, Mrs. Jones, if you call me back again, I will come up to the school and personally talk with them. So, and I reiterate that I would be happy to have you come into to the school to talk with your child so we can get them ready for the rest of the school. So when they come in, it's not to yell. It is
Mhm.
not to chastise their child, but it is to come up with a meeting because the way that it's progressing isn't going to lend
Mm.
itself very well. So honestly, I haven't had parents to have to come up to the school because their children know that we're on the same page, and then
Mhm.
if the next step happens, they're gonna be coming up. We don't have next steps,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it takes a partnership,
Yes. Yeah.
built on trust.
Yeah. I love it.
And you're absolutely right, both of you. I think one of the things that I love about the bridge that we're helping create is that it's alleviating and showing these students that are and children that are younger, we should be working together, and we're
Mhm.
modeling, if we know better, we do better. Well, let's do that for our future generation. These are even kids, or people that don't have kids will say, well, it doesn't matter because I don't have any children. Well, this generation is the generation that's going to be taking care of us when we're older. And the
Mhm.
more we help and support and put into them, the better off we're all going to be.
Yes.
So, it's a trifecta win for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And we've had generations recently feel like I don't need to take care of like elders. Like, I don't,
Right.
there is a lack of respect towards teachers, but towards like just elders in general in our society. But I think a lot of them feel failed. So, I
Yes.
mean, there's responsibility on all parts. And I
Right.
buy that. Like when I hear my teenagers like what they're leaving us with all the mess to clean up. Like they don't feel like
Right.
they have to like help out the older generation. They're often like putting a lot of the, blame on the older generations because they're like, they don't really wanna take care of the future generations. I get it. Like, I get
Yep.
it when they say that. So we all have to, like, have accountability and take part in that. So, and us 3 coming together, especially with, like, the More Joy community, but with our vision is that I think we all see how the teachers, educators, the people like ourselves, advocates in education are the ones that are going to be the movement, that we are going to be the ones changing the education system. It's not just all these teachers leaving the system and saying bye bye, I don't care anymore. A lot of them are doing the work that you're doing. I see a lot, had a lot on the show that are in other roles now in education. A lot of them are entrepreneurs, have their own businesses, and they're
Mhm.
trying to do things differently and then get that kind of momentum going to feed into more teachers wanting to do that. We aren't stuck. We are not stuck in this system. Sometimes we have to leave the system, or at least the traditional model, and that's kind of like my next, path to then elevate the conversation and bring it to the place of like, we're actually now in the action phase. We're not just talking about it, we're in the action phase. Because sometimes if you're staying in the old system, it's really hard to have momentum. But we are the ones that are changing it. You change it from the inside out. And it's not going to be your politicians. The government's not changing overnight. There's not going to be new policies overnight. It's not just about, well, pay the teachers more money. That's why they're leaving. They're not making enough money. Yeah, that is an issue, but there's a much bigger issue. And I think it's the big thing is that we have a structure where there's not this collaboration. There's not transparency. There's a lot of separation, a lot of conflict with that. And if you just bring everyone to the table and say that we're going to build relationship and we're going to get everyone's input. Like I would love to see parents, students, and teachers really saying, here's how we want to do school. This is what we want to do. This is how school should look. We don't want our students stressed out with all this homework and all of these subjects and all these tests that they have to take in standardized testing and whatnot. Like we're doing school for the kids and it impacts them and their families. Like, why aren't we asking them for their input and how we do school? So kind of in our ending here, I don't know if both of you want to share about just kind of how we've come together and ideas you have for like the greater education system. I know like this is one part that you're working on, but how we've kind of been talking about collaborating on a book about a teacher anthology and really sharing these ideas of this movement of, shifting the whole system.
So we've talked about starting a movement with innovation in education and thinking outside the box, which is what we've been talking about, and getting professionals together. And so when we start this movement, we can see a lot of different ideas that are currently being implemented, as well as ideas that have not been fully implemented, because those ideas are still very good based upon what we know about the system that we're currently in and where can we take it to the next level. So we want to empower others peacefully and to use their voice and to be able to speak up for what they value in education, or like you had already said, where do they see the educational system going, and how can they support that next step or their vision.
Mm-hmm.
Do either
That was
one of
very well said. I was going to say, I don't know that there was anything that you didn't say that I was planning to say, so I don't want to repeat it, but you did a great job of saying exactly what I would have said.
This has been so wonderful. I'm so glad to have you both on and sharing about your book and your program coming out. I can't wait to see where that goes. I think this is going to be something that reaches the national level. Very much need it. And I would love to link all of that, and I'll get more information about you about your program. But if there's any other information you want to share about your contact for our listeners, and I can also plug that in the show notes.
Sure. I would just say for myself, you can find me on LinkedIn or on Facebook. I also have a YouTube channel, Inclusion Advocates and Allies. And we are going to eventually be, Christine and I, starting our own podcast as well. So that's to come, future job, thing on our plate that we're looking at doing. So just
Great.
Thank you again, Jackie, for having us on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
So I am mostly on LinkedIn, so they can reach me. And LinkedIn, it's Christine Lynn Jones, and Kristin's is Kristin Lynn Nori. So because you got to get that middle name.
Very true.
Yeah, so our names are kind of funny. A lot
I
of people
know.
get us all goofed up, but you didn't do that, Jackie. You got us all straight. I'm impressed.
And you both have Lynn as your middle name. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
so we
that's
both have
right.
Lynn as our middle name.
Yes,
So,
it's crazy.
and then I
Meant to
have
be.
Be the Change is my YouTube channel, but it's also linked on my LinkedIn. So it's like yeah. So, anyways, I'm very excited to be here with you, Jackie, and I look forward to what's to come next. Because we always say, the best is yet to come.
Yes. Thank you both so much. And everyone, connect with Kristin and Christine and check out Bridging the Educational Gap book and look out for their program coming soon. I'm so excited. Thank you both again for coming on the Teacher Story.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie.
Thank you for tuning into the Teacher Story. Your support fuels my mission to shape a brighter future for our children. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, liking, and leaving a review. You can also support me by donating to my Buy Me a Coffee fund, linked in the show notes. Don't forget to explore my guests' work and show them your support. Together, we can make a difference in education. We do this in community. We rise together.